Hello and welcome back to another Diabetic Wittering. And today I thought I'd talk a little bit more about food again. I thought I'd put this video up because this week I had a couple of minor shocks. First was that I discovered my weight was rapidly increasing, and I thought I'd better find out why that was. The second was that I suddenly discovered my blood glucose level was dropping. Now, the increase in my weight, I think, was because my wife and I had friends round last week and we had a pudding. And the pudding we had was a brilliant low glucose or low carbohydrate version of a chocolate fondant. They're delicious. They're little spongy type things with a liquid gooey-ish centre. They take very little time to make. They're very easy and they're really tasty. And not only are they really tasty when you have them warm, you can stick them in the fridge and they last as little chocolatey buns that you can eat later. They're great. And I still haven't got out of the desire for some sort of sweetish type of bun snack thing, and these are absolutely perfect. The only trouble is they're also hugely high in calories because the main ingredient of them is I think they call it almond flour, but it's basically just hugely crushed almonds and a lot of eggs, and that's what goes into it. I had one of these on the evening when our friends were around on the Friday, and then for the following few days, every other day I'd have one. And they were delicious. And one day I had a few other things as well. I can't remember exactly what it was. But certainly the next day I discovered I'd put on quite a lot of weight, and I can only put it down to possibly a lack of sufficient exercise and one of these buns that was really tasty. They are very nice. They taste incredibly sweet, although the only sugars that go into them are 2 dates to make 8 of these little buns. So a half a date's worth of sugar is all the sweetness you have. So it's not a huge amount. And in terms of my diabetic blood glucose levels, it was brilliant. It had no impact at all. It is good that there are things that you can eat, even when you're trying to control your blood sugars. And having access to that sort of thing is really good. The only trouble is you do have to watch your weight as well. So I know that every Monday I'll try to have a fasting diet type day. So we'll have very little to eat through the day and we'll have a soup or something at night. And it will be a lentil soup. It won't be anything that's hugely fattening. And that way my wife and I seem to be controlling our weight generally pretty well. But what I have found is that your blood sugars will fluctuate depending on different things. So when I had to go and have a filling done at the dentist, my blood sugars went up high, even though my breakfast was perfectly normal. My usual breakfast is 30 grams of oat with 200 odd cc's of water, and I mix them all together with about 15 grams of almonds and another 10 grams of broken walnuts. Mix it all together, pinch of salt, heat it up, and that makes a good porridge. And then I'll put a handful of blueberries on top and 2 spoons of strong yogurt, a kefir normally. And that means I've got about 30 grams worth of carbohydrate containing food, which isn't much. And that's enough carbohydrate for me to keep going through the day, I think. But every now and again things go haywire. As I say, when I went to the dentist, things went a bit haywire then, and I can only assume it was a fight or flight type response to the thought that I knew I was going to have a filling. I knew it was not going to be pleasant. And, these things tend to have an impact. And fight or flight means that your body creates adrenaline. If you're anxious, if you're worried or anything like that, you'll create adrenaline. Um, it'll convert a lot of carbohydrate and fat into sugar so that you can run away if you need to. I would have liked to run away, but instead I've got a new filling. But there are things that will have that sort of impact on you, and you won't necessarily tell what on earth it is that caused it. Now, I have this lovely little package, which is my essentials for testing blood sugars. So I've got a Lancet driver. These are the actual Lancet needles. I've got the monitor, and in here are a whole bunch of test strips. And every day I will fire this thing into into several fingers actually, because I fire it more than once a day. And I've been finding that the blood glucose levels have been up. They've been up to the 8 to 9 sort of level, and a couple of times I've been to 11, which isn't good. And I've been monitoring what I've been eating. I haven't changed my diet. I haven't been eating things like bananas or mangoes. These tend to drive my sugars up, I know. I have been having more Derbyshire oatcakes. Now, one thing I have to say is that porridge is a really good breakfast. It works for me, but every now and again I want something a bit different. I discovered when I was in Derbyshire earlier this year researching a book that they have these things called Derbyshire oatcakes, which are basically oat and flour mixed with yeast, mixed up heavily, and they wait till the yeast has started to bubble, and then they'll drop it into a frying pan and cook it a bit like a pancake. But because it's got yeast in it, it comes with these little bubbles coming through it. They're absolutely delicious, really wonderful, and when they smother them with cheese and drop a slice of ham on top and sell them with a salad, they make a really good lunch. And I thought, oh, that is really tasty. And I checked my blood sugars afterwards, and it didn't have too much of an impact, even though it was made with flour. So I thought that could be a useful alternative thing for me. So I started experimenting, and I made oatcakes with oatmeal mixed with chickpea flour and mixed with buckwheat flour. The other day I did it with oatmeal, chickpea flour and rye flour, and I've tried different combinations. I tend to use about 2 teaspoons of each of those flours, which tends to make between 30 and 40 grams worth of flours. So I think it's still within my sort of carbohydrate range and works well. I will also mix in some psyllium husk. Now, psyllium husk is a strange constituent that absorbs quite a lot of water. So when you make something like a Derbyshire oatcake with psyllium husk added, it means you have to add a lot more water, which means it's a lot more filling, and it works well. So, for example, this morning I had quite a large one. It was about 50 grams of oatmeal. Let me just get this straight. So I had 2 teaspoons of oatmeal, 2 teaspoons of chickpea flour, 2 teaspoons of buckwheat flour. I had 2 teaspoons of psyllium husk, good pinch of salt, and then added a lot of water to that, and it made for a large size pancake type thing. Cooked it up. That, with a slice of ham on top and 2 eggs, was a really good breakfast. Thoroughly enjoyable, and it left me feeling comfortably filled until lunchtime. Of course, the concern is when you have something like that, what's it going to do to your blood sugars? Now, I've been discovering recently that my blood sugars have suddenly started coming down in the last week. I checked my blood sugars this morning. When I got out of bed, it was last night before I went to bed, my blood sugars were 4.8, well low. Got up this morning, they were 5.2, perfectly healthy and low. And when I checked myself again after that breakfast, an hour and a half after that breakfast, it was up to about 8.2, which is good. That's fine. It's below 8.5 is perfectly good after a meal. So that was reassuring. So what has suddenly meant that my blood sugars are coming down? Now, this is not a scientific response. Don't take this as gospel, for goodness sake. I am not a doctor and I am not a specialist with all these things. I am still learning. And the idea of these videos is that it's a record of my experience because it might help other people who have also got diabetes. It's not that I am a great scientific expert. It's just I'm trying to give people an indication of what I've tried in case it might help you. So, what have I discovered is really helpful? This week, last Sunday, I went out. Sorry, this is Sunday before last by the time this video goes out. I went out with Tinners Morris and I was dancing on the seafront at Sidmouth. I drank a lot of water, no beer. I was a good boy, didn't drink any alcohol, just stuck to water, and my blood sugars stayed pretty good, pretty constant. It was a good amount of exercise, lovely weather. I felt happy, the blood sugars stayed good. Thursday this week, I went out to the Oakhampton show with Tinners Morris. We danced busking all around Oakhampton show all day. Lots of exercise, really quite tiring. And when we stopped at lunchtime, a friend went to buy a round of beers for the Tinners Morris, and he very generously bought me a glass of wine, which I wasn't expecting, and when it suddenly materialised, I was a bit shocked, but I thought, oh, what the hell, it's only once in a while, so I drank it. And then I drank a second glass as well. Only smallish glasses, it wasn't really a huge amount, but it just felt nice. That evening when I checked my bloods, they were lower than usual. The next morning they were still low, and they remained low. The day after that, the Friday, was the beginning of the Dartmoor Folk Festival. I had 2 glasses of wine there, and as I say, my blood sugars went down to 4.8 by that evening. They were 5.2 in the morning. Really good levels of blood sugar. To which my wife's new idea is that maybe we should have a wine box open in the kitchen so that I can have a glass of wine per day. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I think I'm going to try it, because if I was to have a bottle of wine opened, it'll go off, and so I'd feel guilty, so I'd probably drink the wine a damn sight faster. But if we've got a wine box, then I can just draw off a glass a day. I can treat that sensibly, but it will be interesting to see if it's true that the wine is actually that helpful. In terms of other things, my diet generally hasn't changed very much in the last 12 months. So I'm eating an awful lot of vegetables. I try to eat a lot of cabbage, kale, green stuff generally. I'm eating a lot of lettuces now because it's summer. I've got a lot of courgettes. Courgettes are fantastically useful. There's a lot of recipes I've found on the internet which involve making muffins, but a primary constituent of the muffin is actually courgette, mixed with almond flour and other stuff. I'm going to be experimenting with other types of flour like chickpea. The benefit of things like chickpea flour and oatmeal compared to ordinary flour is that you don't get such a spike in blood sugars afterwards. They're slower release of carbohydrate. I don't know if it's because they take longer to absorb or if the starches and carbohydrates in them are of a different type, and so it means that they release more slowly. I'm going to have to do some research into that and see if I can find out what actually makes them better. But certainly I have discovered, for me, chickpea flour, I think buckwheat too, are actually quite good for me. I think rye flour tends to be a bit better for you as well. Anything that really avoids white wheat flour is going to be better. So I'm sticking with the low carbohydrate approach. but I'm not cutting out all carbohydrates because I don't think that would be necessarily a good thing. And there you have it, really. That's my experience of the last week. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about next week. I'm still waiting for the laser operation on my eyes, which is desperately badly needed. My left eye is deteriorating, and I can tell that. It's not because of high blood glucose levels, it's not because of high blood pressure, so I'm not too sure what is causing that. It could just be that it's the effect of my age and the amount of time I've had diabetes without it being treated, which is over 10 years, according to the eye surgeon. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. But I'll keep you up to date from here. Now, if you have any interest in supporting this channel, the fact that you're watching will help, so thanks a lot for watching through till now. If you do want to support the channel, though, then I'd be very grateful for your assistance, and you can do the normal things. There's a Patreon link down the bottom. You can buy me a coffee, you can give me a super thanks, there's all sorts of stuff like that. If you merely like and subscribe, that will assist me as well, because it drives the algorithm and pushes my name further up the listings for YouTube and so on. But apart from that, thanks a lot for watching, thanks a lot for your support, and for goodness sake, keep safe. And if you've got any suspicion whatsoever, if you're feeling lethargic, if you're aware of any injuries that don't seem to clear up, anything at all, do go and check yourself out with the doctor, because if you're diabetic like me, because you had no symptoms, you don't spot it, it means you can do yourself a lot of damage. Take care, keep safe, speak to you soon. Bye.